In this video, we're gonna look at a full renovation from a master bathroom that our team just completed. I'm not gonna make you wait for the before and after, so here it is. Our client wanted a fresh modern look with an open feel, so we put a glass wet room in, a standing tub, and all new tile. Pretty much everything had to go, so we ripped out all the tile, the vanity, the toilet, the drywall, and everything else so we could start with a blank, clean slate. We're gonna go ahead and jump through the process pretty quick here because I wanna keep this video down to 10 minutes, but if you wanna see a full, in-depth, long video like this in the future, I'll try to do that on a future job. This is where that dividing wall used to be, which we're gonna knock out to put a glass fixture for that wet room to really open this space up. This whole bathroom was leveled with like 3 inches of concrete, so we wore our masks and knocked everything out. As you can see, the subfloor was pretty out of level, so we went ahead and corrected that as we were redoing the plumbing. Once we recessed the subfloor, we tested our tub and our shower pan to make sure everything was good before we poured our self-leveler and got the floor all nice and crispy. The next morning we came in and did all the plumbing, but I totally forgot to film that, so I'll go ahead and just show you me doing the shower pan here. I'm setting a Schluter pan that is a pre-sloped foam pan in their Schluter All Set, which is a great system. I absolutely loved it. Then we got the walls covered in Go Board, which I absolutely love. Some people don't like to mix and match, but I've never had a problem. This customer wanted all the bells and whistles, so I actually went ahead and laid down Schluter's Dietra heat system. This is the peel and stick stuff, so you have to do a primer on the subfloor before you go ahead and peel it off, stick it down, and then apply pressure and roll it out. It's a really cool system, and the cables go ahead and snap in. I did a 2-3 pattern here all throughout the bathroom. You can see the wet area and the main area both have heated flooring all throughout. Then I mixed up some more All Set to put the Curdy membrane down in order to waterproof the whole area. As you can notice, I didn't put any cabling down where the standing tub goes. This is important because there's not supposed to be any heavy things that are set on top of this cabling, just areas that are for walking. Since this is going to be a curbless shower, I really needed to waterproof this entire area, so we put down the Curdy membrane, and then we went ahead and actually did Curdy banding in between the Go Board and the flooring and all the seams so that everything is waterproofed. No matter how many times you may have done this, it's so important to read the instructions because it's pretty specific what each individual manufacturer requires under warranty. We gave it time to dry, then we came back, measured out all the tiles, cut them on the trusty wet saw, and made sure that our layout worked. We did an envelope cut for this curbless shower, which takes a lot of geometry and cutting and then recutting. But if you just blankly stare at it for a few hours, eventually it'll work out. This area was actually the most challenging cut out of everything because we cut this little slot in order to put a Schluter deco profile and recess the fixed panel of the glass to give it a really nice seamless look. But we continued to go ahead and cut all of our little circles and notches out so that we could lay all the tile at one time. I used a combination of different grinding bits on my angle grinder and my wet saw to make sure that these edges are really nice. Since this is a curbless wet room, I really took the time to cut every tile, lay it out, and number everything before actually putting the mortar on, just so I could make sure all the slopes, all the planes, and angles fit together properly before I had drying mortar. I'm once again using the Schluter All Set here because that's what the manufacturer requires in order for warranty to be fulfilled. And then I'm spreading it out with a 1/2-inch trowel since these are 24 by 24 inch porcelain tiles. And then I back butter every single tile. I try to stay as clean as I possibly can by wiping each seam every time I lay a tile with a toothbrush and then putting my spin lock leveling system in. Man, this really helps to keep it clean as you go, because if you've ever tiled anything, you know there ain't nothing clean about it. Eventually we were able to lay the entire flooring out and get everything ready, so the next day we came in, started cleaning up in order to prep for the wall tiles. I really try to take my time lining up these tiles, getting good coverage with that trowel, directional troweling and back buttering every tile, because especially with these large format tiles, man, it really is important to make sure there's no hollow spots or voids. Once again, as much as possible, wiping to keep a clean workspace helps a lot with later cleanup. Because if you've ever tiled, you know that mortar, once it dries, it is a real pain to get off. I use this vibrator tool to go ahead and make sure all those voids and those ridges are collapsed into itself so you get that good coverage, and then clean up the tiles to make sure everything's good, lined up, and steady. Your first few tiles are crucial to make sure that top comes out level. Now that we're finished with that back wall, it's time to move on to the side walls. Go ahead and mark everything out where the tub spout goes and use my diamond bits again. Here's a closer look at the ones that I use. I use this cylindrical one and a cone shape in order to really make sure that those edges are nice. I always say that the edges are what make a good tile job. Check out how crispy that is. There's nothing better than that, I'm telling you what. I'm doing a similar thing where before I actually put the tiles on with mortar, I try to cut them as much as possible so I can make sure everything lines up before it's too late. If you go really slow and are patient with it, you can get really crispy lines like this where I'm cutting out the shower niche, which is so nice and satisfying. I took my grinder and put a 45-degree angle on the inside of this tile to miter every edge for the shower niche. This kind of stuff is what brings it from an okay tile job to a really pro-looking tile job. Just lines up right like that. I measured and marked out where the mixer valve goes for the tub spout, and then I went ahead and took my grinder to cut this out once again. Now this is something that they do make hole saws for, but I didn't have one that big, so I had to use my grinder with the bits on it once again. Takes a long time, but I think it's really important to be able to take pride in your work, especially if you're charging someone for it. Now this is going to be covered by a trim plate, but I try to get it as close to perfect as possible. It was at this moment that I realized that it was a ½ inch off and had to cut that whole piece over again. As the saying goes, eyeball it and cut 4 times, right? Once I got everything cut out and to a place where I was happy with it, I put down my mortar once again and started laying those tiles. Made sure everything was lined up with that laser level, which helps a ton. If you don't have one, get a laser level if you're doing a tile job. Went up and finished tiling the rest of that wall. This is what it looked like after I finished all 3 walls and the floor. As you can see, I put down some cardboard and tape to protect the flooring as I was doing the walls. That'll help you a lot in the cleanup process afterwards. Went through and started knocking off all those spindles, and I'll tell you what, when these things break off, sometimes they leave a little bit of plastic in there, which is really annoying, but I've found 2 methods. I'll take vice grips and hit it off, and then I'll turn my multi-tool to the lowest setting. Be really careful with the depth not to cut into the waterproofing membrane or chip a tile. It's totally not worth your time to sort out all your spacers and reuse them because they don't cost much, but I like to reuse stuff. I cleaned out every grout line as much as possible to make sure the grout can sit right into those seams as best as possible, and then did a nice sponge down on all the tiles before setting all that grout. You can use your shop vac right at the head of the bucket to control any dust that might spill out of it, and definitely wear a mask. Don't breathe this stuff in because you don't want mortar in your lungs. I'll start all the way at one end of the wall and work my way to the other, and I'm typically taking my grout float at a 45-degree angle to a 90-degree angle and working it in a crosshatch kind of pattern so I can make sure there's no air bubbles or anything like that, and that grout is fully filling the seams in between the tiles. It's important to shop vac out or clean out all your grout joints to make sure that dirt in there would not actually inhibit the adhesion that your grout has within the grout joints. Once it has some time to set up, I come back through with microfiber rags and a coarse sponge and a big bucket of water in order to wipe that grout haze off and to make sure all those grout lines are even. For the wood look tile on the back wall, I used 2 different colors of the same brand to mix together in order to really get it, because there was no color available that really matched this tile well, and I really wanted it to blend in perfectly. This is where we're at once we got everything cleaned up and all of the tile dehazed. I taped up both of the shower niches so I could get an epoxy inside of those miter joints and make it look really seamless. I had mixed it up to color match as much as possible, put it in those grooves, and then I pulled the tape off, waited for it to cure, and then I sanded it down. I use 100% silicone grout caulk in between the tile joints because any normal grout will go ahead and crack over time here. I also went ahead and did a custom red oak vanity base for this customer because there wasn't one online that he could find that he really liked, so I just built it according to his specifications. I tried to film putting the tub and glass in, but I accidentally turned the camera off as soon as I got it in position, so we got the fixed panel in, got the tub in before putting the glass in to make it way easier, and then I went ahead and mounted that glass door. We finished up the project by putting all Kohler fixtures in, the crown molding, and getting a nice paint job on. The client wanted a really unique modern look, so we put in these designer sinks and this funky mirror. Take a look at the finished product and then the before and after, and tell me what you would have wanted different in your bathroom. Let me know if you have any questions about this project in the comment section, and I'll do my best that I can in order to answer you according to my experience. If you like content like this, subscribe and drop me a like, and I'll see you next time.